They said it would be funny. Just a harmless prank. A blind date set up for a poor mechanic who spent more time fixing broken engines than thinking about love. Everyone expected the night to be awkward, maybe even embarrassing. But no one imagined it would take a turn that left the whole room silent. The mechanic, humble and hardworking, walked into the fancy restaurant completely unaware that the girl waiting for him wasn't just anyone. She was the CEO's daughter, known for her confidence, kindness, and the kind of beauty that made people stare twice. He thought she would laugh the moment she saw him. He thought she would walk away once she realized the prank. Instead, she smiled. A real smile. And when she looked at him, something changed in the air, something no one planned for. The poor mechanic, with grease still stubborn on his hands, suddenly became the center of her attention. People around them watched in shock, whispering, confused. This wasn't supposed to happen. She wasn't supposed to like him. But she leaned closer and said softly, "I like him." The mechanic didn't know where to look. Part of him wanted to run, convinced someone was recording this moment to laugh about later. Another part of him couldn't ignore the strange warmth in her eyes, like she actually wanted to be there with him. He sat down slowly, still unsure if this was real or just another trick meant to embarrass a poor man in a fancy place. She introduced herself with a calm, soft voice, but he already knew who she was. Everyone in town did. The CEO's daughter, smart, respected, raised in a world he could only see from far away. What he didn't know was why she wasn't standing up and leaving. Why she kept asking him questions about his work, his dreams, his life at the small mechanic shop. Meanwhile, at a nearby table, the group who planned the prank kept exchanging looks. This wasn't funny anymore, they whispered nervously, trying to figure out why she was acting like this. Had she recognized the prank? Was she playing along for reasons they didn't understand? The mechanic noticed their uneasy glances, making his heart beat faster. Something wasn't right. There was more going on here than just a blind date gone wrong, and the moment she leaned in again, he sensed the real twist was still coming. The mechanic tried to focus on her words, but his mind kept drifting to the group, watching them. Their faces were pale now, nothing like the smug expressions they had earlier. He didn't know if they were scared of getting caught or worried about something bigger. The CEO's daughter noticed them too, but she didn't say anything. Instead, she kept guiding the conversation toward him, as if she were trying to understand a part of his life no one had ever cared to ask about. She asked about his workshop, his long nights fixing cars, and the people who relied on him. Her interest felt genuine, yet there was something in her eyes, something like she already knew more about him than she was letting on. The mechanic felt a strange mix of comfort and confusion, unsure if he should trust what he was feeling. Across the room, one of the prank organizers slipped outside to make a phone call. His hand shook as he whispered urgently, glancing back through the window. The mechanic didn't hear the words, but he felt the shift in the atmosphere. It wasn't just a prank gone wrong. There was a bigger reason behind their panic, and when the CEO's daughter suddenly lowered her voice and said, "There's something you need to know, but not here," his whole world tightened with fear and curiosity. The mechanic's heart pounded so hard he thought it might burst. Her words hung in the air like a fragile thread, pulling him toward a truth he wasn't ready for. He glanced at the pranksters. Again, they were no longer whispering, just staring with wide eyes, as if they were witnessing something they couldn't control. Sweat prickled at the back of his neck, and for a moment, he wondered if this was all a trap he couldn't escape. The CEO's daughter leaned closer, her tone low but urgent. "I can't explain everything here. It's complicated. But you need to know that not everyone here wants the truth to come out." Her eyes searched his face, filled with a mix of fear and trust. The mechanic wanted to ask questions, to understand, but words caught in his throat. He realized this wasn't just about a blind date anymore. There were secrets, dangers, and maybe even a plan that involved him in ways he couldn't predict. Outside the restaurant, one of the pranksters' phones buzzed violently. The mechanic noticed the tense expression on his face, something serious, something he couldn't ignore. The CEO's daughter's hand brushed his for a second, a reassuring touch that felt both real and impossible. And then, just as she whispered, "Follow me, but be careful. They're watching." The doors to the restaurant swung open, and a shadow fell across their table. The moment froze, and the world seemed to hold its breath. The shadow across their table didn't belong to a waiter or a random diner. It was someone far more dangerous. A man in a sharp suit, eyes cold and calculating, scanned the room before locking his gaze on the CEO's daughter. The mechanic felt a chill run down his spine. He had no idea who this was, but the way everyone else in the restaurant stiffened told him it wasn't someone to be ignored. The daughter's grip on his hand tightened. "You weren't supposed to see him," she whispered, her voice trembling for the first time. "He knows about the prank. And about you." The mechanic's mind raced. How could a simple blind date prank turn into something like this? His life, which had always been quiet and predictable, suddenly felt like it was on the edge of a cliff. Meanwhile, the pranksters were scrambling, trying to hide their panic. Phones were shoved into pockets, chairs shifted, and murmurs filled the air. No one knew exactly what would happen next, but the tension was unbearable. Every second felt heavier than the last, and the mechanic realized that leaving now wasn't an option whatever this man wanted. It had something to do with him, too. The CEO's daughter leaned in closer, her voice almost lost in the hum of the room. Trust me, you have to move, or everything changes tonight. The mechanic swallowed hard, the weight of danger pressing down, knowing that whatever came next would change both of their lives forever. The man in the suit stepped closer, his presence cutting through the tension like a knife. The restaurant seemed to shrink around the mechanic and the CEO's daughter, every eye on them. But instead of fear, the daughter's expression hardened. Enough, she said firmly, standing up and facing him directly. This ends tonight. The man's cold smile faltered. You think you can stop this? He asked, but she didn't flinch. In a sudden move, she revealed a folder from her bag documents. Proof that exposed a scheme the man had been hiding. A plan that would have ruined not only her family, but also anyone who got in his way. The mechanic blinked, stunned, as the pieces fell together. This wasn't just a prank gone wrong. The blind date had unknowingly placed him at the center of a dangerous game, and the CEO's daughter had chosen to trust him. With the evidence revealed, the man's power crumbled. He was forced to leave under watchful eyes, his threats silenced for the moment. The restaurant, once tense and heavy with suspense, began to breathe again. The mechanic finally exhaled, relief washing over him, and the daughter smiled this time without fear. But as they stepped outside into the quiet night, a car slowed nearby. A shadowed figure watched them, phone in hand, and the daughter's eyes widened. They're not done, she whispered. The mechanic realized their story, their unexpected connection, had only just begun. The mechanic and the CEO's daughter walked slowly down the quiet street, the tension of the night gradually fading. The danger had passed, at least for now, and the prank that started it all seemed almost unreal. He glanced at her, still amazed that someone from such a different world could see him not for his clothes or his job, but for who he really was. She smiled back, a gentle warmth that made all the fear and uncertainty worthwhile. Back at the restaurant, the pranksters had slipped away quietly, their lesson learned. The night hadn't gone as they expected, but somehow, their joke had sparked something real. The mechanic realized that life could change in an instant, sometimes because of a blind date, sometimes because of trust, and sometimes because someone dared to see beyond the surface. The CEO's daughter squeezed his hand. You're braver than anyone I've ever met, she said softly. He laughed, a mix of relief and disbelief, knowing that tonight had shown him more than he could have imagined. As they walked under the city lights, the world felt full of possibilities. Love, courage, and unexpected connections had brought them together. And though challenges might come again, they knew they could face them together. Their story, which began as a prank, had turned into something unforgettable.